I didn't scream when I found out the truth. I didn't cry. I didn't collapse the way everyone expected. I just sat there, staring at the man I almost ran away with, realizing he never loved me at all. And in that moment, I understood something terrifying. I hadn't escaped a prison. I had been walking straight into one. Pause for effect if you've ever trusted the wrong person. If you've ever felt trapped between love, family, and shame. Or if you've ever wondered whether revenge can be quiet but devastating. Like, subscribe, and comment where you're watching from. Because this story doesn't explode loudly, it cuts slowly. My name is Farheen, and before you judge me, before you decide whether I'm foolish or ungrateful, understand this: I was married. Without being asked. Not because I loved him. Not because I chose him. But because I was caught trying to escape. The day my family dragged me back home, my wrist still burned from where my mother had grabbed me too tightly. The house smelled like incense and fear. No one asked why I ran. They already knew the answer: Faison. He used to stand just outside our gate, pretending to check his phone. Every day. Same time. Same smile. He spoke softly. Like a man who understood pain. Just a little longer, he'd whisper. Then we'll be free. That word tasted sweet. And dangerous. They didn't yell at first. That came later. First came silence. Then my father spoke one sentence that changed my life forever. You will marry Sultan Shah, my cousin. A man I barely spoke to. A man whose eyes never softened when he looked at me. Sultan didn't ask if I wanted this. He didn't apologize. He didn't explain. He just said, this marriage is happening. His voice wasn't loud, which somehow made it worse. The room smelled of roses. I felt sick. When I accused him, when I told him he ruined my life, his hand moved faster than my thoughts. The sound echoed sharp final. And in that moment, something inside me died. I decided then, I would never forgive him. I would never love him. If this was my punishment, I would endure it silently. And someday I would leave. What I didn't notice back then was how Sultan never touched me again. Never raised his voice again. Never entered my room without knocking. How he slept on the couch some nights. How his anger seemed directed inward. Faison still messaged me. Still promised escape. Still said Sultan was cruel. And I believed him. Because believing Faison meant I wasn't wrong. In my head, Sultan was the villain. Cold. Dominating. A man who stole my future. I told myself he married me to own me. To punish me. To win. One night, I heard Sultan arguing with my father. I'll sign the papers, Sultan said quietly. She deserves freedom, I froze. Divorce, why would my jailer unlock the door? When I confronted him, my voice shook. Why did you marry me? He didn't look away. I loved you, he said. Before you ever noticed, Faison, my chest tightened. Sultan leaned forward. Faison isn't who you think he is, I laughed. Because denial is easier than regret. But Sultan didn't flinch. He came after your family first, he said. You were just the easiest door. Then Sultan said something that shattered everything. He wanted to destroy your father, your name, your home. And he was willing to destroy you to do it. My phone buzzed, a message from Faison. Tonight, we leave. I stared at the screen and realized I had never been the love story, I was the weapon. The message from Faison stayed on my screen. Tonight, we leave. No heart emoji, no reassurance. just instructions for the first time that felt wrong. I imagined running, not toward freedom, but toward a cliff I couldn't see. I typed back slowly. Why tonight? 3 dots appeared, then disappeared, then, because your husband is dangerous. I stared at the word dangerous. And suddenly, Sultan's voice echoed in my head. He was looking for a door. I asked Faizan something simple. If we leave, where will we go? Another pause too long. Finally, I'll figure it out. That wasn't the Faizan I knew. He always had a plan. Or at least, he always pretended to. I lay awake that night, staring at the ceiling fan. And memories started rearranging themselves. Faizan asking strange questions about my father's business. Faizan wanting copies of documents just in case. Faizan never wanting to meet my family but knowing everything about them. How had I missed it? The next morning, I went to Sultan. Not angry. Not accusing. Just tired. If you're lying, I said, this is your last chance. He didn't rush. Didn't raise his voice. He opened a drawer and slid a file across the table. Inside were printed emails, bank statements, legal notices, names I recognized, and one I didn't want to. Faizan. Connected to a rival firm my father crushed years ago. A firm that collapsed. A family that lost everything. He didn't come for you first, Sultan said quietly. He came for your family, and when he saw you, angry, romantic, desperate, he realized you were the perfect way in. I felt sick, not betrayed, used. No, I whispered, he loved me. Sultan's jaw tightened. He studied you, he corrected, there's a difference. Sultan handed me his phone. A recording. Faizan's voice laughing. Once she runs, the scandal will finish them. Her father won't survive it. I couldn't breathe. My ears rang. Every promise replayed itself and turned rotten. The man I planned to ruin my family for was planning to ruin me. I didn't cry. I didn't scream. I just said I'm sorry to Sultan. For hating him. For misjudging him. For surviving his protection and resenting it. I never wanted your obedience, he said. I wanted your safety. He pulled out an envelope. Divorce papers. Already signed. My knees weakened. You're free, Sultan said. If you still want to leave, go. That was the moment. Not when he married me. Not when he hit me. But when he let me go. That's when I saw his power. I realized something terrifying. Faizan had tried to control me with romance. Sultan protected me with restraint. Only one of those was love. I looked at the file again. At what point, I asked slowly, does Faizan realize he's lost? Sultan met my eyes. He already thinks he's won. That's when I smiled. I messaged Faizan. I'm scared, I wrote. I think Sultan suspects us, he replied instantly. Don't worry. Stick to the plan. For the first time, he sounded nervous. Sultan and I didn't touch, didn't reconcile, didn't rush anything. We became something more dangerous, allies, quiet, focused, patient. Faizan didn't know it yet, but every message he sent me, every instruction, every lie was being documented, time-stamped, saved, and soon used, because revenge doesn't always arrive screaming. Sometimes it arrives with paperwork. Pause for effect. I became the girl Faizan expected. Fearful, confused, isolated. I told him Sultan was watching me. That I felt trapped. That I needed him more than ever. And Faizan. He stepped closer. Predators always do when they think their prey is cornered. Don't worry, Faison said during our call. Everything will be over soon. Over, I asked softly. Our suffering, he corrected. But his voice didn't sound concerned. It sounded impatient. While Faison whispered promises, Sultan moved quietly. Lawyers, auditors, old court records, the kind of work no one sees until it's too late, turns out. Faison's family business didn't just fail, it committed fraud, and the one person who'd helped bury the evidence was Faison himself. I almost felt sorry for him. Almost. Faison asked to meet in person, he insisted. One last time before we leave, I agreed. And for the first time, I wasn't afraid. Sultan didn't stop me, didn't forbid me. He only said, say as little as possible, and placed a recorder in my bag. Public place. Bright lights. Too many witnesses. Faison smiled when he saw me. That smile made my skin crawl now. You did well, Faison said casually. Your family's reputation won't survive this. My fingers tightened around my cup. So that was always the goal? I asked. He leaned back. Revenge takes patience. You never loved me, I said. He laughed. Love. As if the word amused him. You were convenient, every word. Every admission. Every arrogant breath captured. I stood up. Faison frowned. What are you doing? Leaving, I said. For real this time. 2 days later, his accounts were frozen. Then came the notice. Then the calls he didn't return. Then the knock on his door. He called me. Over and over. Text after text. Threats turned to apologies. Apologies turned to silence. The story broke quietly. No headlines. Just whispers. Business circles talk. They always do. And once they start, they never stop. Weeks later, I saw Faizan. Smaller. Quieter. Avoiding eye contact. He didn't speak to me. Didn't need to. His defeat spoke for him. I expected joy. What I felt was peace. Revenge hadn't burned. It had closed a door. I handed Sultan the recorder. He didn't celebrate, didn't smile. He just said, you're safe now, and that's when I knew I loved him. But safety wasn't the end. Because one question remained. What happens after revenge? What happens after truth? What happens after forgiveness? Pause for effect. After Faison disappeared from my life, something unexpected happened. Nothing. No chaos. No celebration. No dramatic relief. Just silence. And in that silence, I had to face a truth harder than revenge. I still had a choice to make. The divorce papers were still there. Unsigned by me. Sultan never mentioned them again. Never pressured me. Never asked what I decided. Which somehow made the weight heavier. I started noticing the things I once ignored. How Sultan waited for me to speak first. How he never entered a room if I looked uncomfortable. How his anger had been replaced with patience and regret. He wasn't trying to be forgiven. He was trying to be better. One evening, without warning, Sultan spoke. I was wrong, he said. Not defensive. Not justified. Just honest. I should never have touched you. Even once my chest tightened. I don't ask for forgiveness, he continued. I just wanted you to know I carry that shame every day. That apology mattered more than any grand gesture. I stayed, I whispered. Not because I had to, he looked up. But because I want to. That was the moment everything changed. Our love didn't explode. It unfolded. Slow mornings. Shared meals. Conversations without fear. No ownership, no control, just two people choosing each other every day. The Shaw family changed too. I wasn't treated like a liability anymore. I was consulted. Respected. Included. The girl who once tried to escape became the woman they trusted. Months later, I stood in the bathroom, hands shaking. 2 lines positive. I sat on the floor and laughed. Then cried. Then laughed again. When I told Sultan, he didn't speak. He just knelt in front of me, pressed his forehead to my stomach, and whispered, "I'll spend my life earning this." Revenge didn't destroy Faison, truth did. Revenge didn't save me, choice did, and love. Love only mattered once it was free. Sometimes the villain isn't who you think. Sometimes the hero makes mistakes. And sometimes karma doesn't arrive loudly, it arrives quietly, with paperwork. With patience, with time. If this story gave you that deep sense of justice, that slow, satisfying closure, smash like, subscribe for more real revenge stories, and share your thoughts in the comments. Was Farheen right to stay, or would you have walked away? Click the next video on screen for another story where karma takes its time, but never misses.